them call attendance in for the CBC?
No, they're not.
Can they ask questions?
It's better if they
Not deliberate?
It's better if they don't, because it's going to deliberate.
All right, we are going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Certainly. Trustee Arnett. Trustee Gale.
Here.
Trustee Holder.
Here?
Trustee Kotinek.
Here.
Trustee Kukler.
Here.
Trustee McCarty. Here. President Livingston.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. Mr. Clerk, will you lead us in the pledge?
My pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I've got a couple of items to report, and then we're going to go right to a presentation on our branding. First of all, I'd like to welcome back our clerk, who locally shopped at Grange Hospital and had his heart worked on. And John, you look great, and we're glad you're here, and you were missed, but here you are.
Thanks. You know, when I was in the hospital, it happened to be the day that I had surgery. And that night I turned on the ball game and I thought, there's a village board meeting. So this is about 8 o'clock at night. I turned on Channel 6. There was no board meeting. So you evidently had a very short meeting.
We had a short meeting. See that? When
Press
you're
meeting.
gone, we just keep it moving.
When the cat's away.
All right, exactly. I wasn't sure where he was going with that. Couple of announcements. Fire Prevention Week open house. Great event. The fire department will hold its annual fire prevention open house on Saturday, October 6th from 11 to 2 p.m. at the fire department, 300 West Burlington. This is a family-oriented event. Includes various fire safety demonstration, crafts, giveaways, and refreshments. Everyone is invited to attend. We've got Skeletober in Grange. This is a friendly, life-size skeleton display around Grange in October, dressed and themed to showcase participating businesses. And of course, we encourage everyone to visit Grange businesses and celebrate the fall season. We do not need to hold a closed session this evening. We had put that as a placeholder on the agenda, but we don't have anything new for closed session this evening to the board. Our next village board meeting will be on October the 8th. And with that, before we go to the other aspects of the report, Andre, I'll turn it over to you for any of the manager's report.
Thank you very much. The fall leave pickup program will begin on Monday, October 1st and continue through November 21st. Leaves will generally be collected every other week by the Public Works Department from each village street. Leaves should be raked to the curb and street gutters. No bags or yard waste stickers are required for this service. For more information, please visit the village's website or contact Public Works at 708-579-2328. One additional announcement, with the assistance of LTTV this evening, we are live streaming our village board meeting on Facebook, and we welcome your feedback regarding this new feature. And the Facebook page is LaGrange, Illinois, LaGrange IL, and that's where the link will be located to the village board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. And again, thanks to Andre and the staff for unpacking the various recommendations of our digital technology communications task force and the members of the village board who've advocated for that. We're really, as we lead into this next presentation, talking about branding, communications, website type of things that we're going to be doing later. all in parallel to each other, and they all impact each other. So we're grateful for everybody's time. At this point, I'm going to ask that we transition to a presentation by Chandler Thinks. And as we do so, is Steve, I see in the back. Maybe Charity, can you provide the microphone to the members of the CEDC and they can introduce themselves for those watching on television? We have the Community Economic Development Commission, and some of those members are joining us tonight, and they are active in this process and have been really the home for this branding discussion. So with introductions, oh, I lost the microphone. Okay.
Hi, I'm Camille Hall.
Peggy Carlson.
Jimmy Janevsky.
Greg D. Domenico.
Russ Roberto. Michael Butrin.
Beth Augustine.
And we've got Steve Palmer, also commissioner in the back. Thank you all. Thank you to the leadership
And
of the...
Tom Cassidy.
Tom
is
Cassidy.
Oh,
back as
Tom
well.
Cassidy. Thank you, Mike. And we've got the leadership of the LGBA here tonight. So again, thank you all. You've been home plate on this. And with that, Steve Chandler will be presenting the results of their research, as well as the stakeholder involvement that has occurred really since June. And they will come back to present their final recommended brand, brand strategy and visual identity sometime in the November to December timeframe. So we're on schedule with this process, and we appreciate, Steve, you visiting LaGrange once again, and we'll give the floor to you.
You bet. Glad to be back. Thank you all very much. This is a little bit of a tough presentation. I'll have to get my wits about me because I know that's important to know where he is. I'm a walker when I talk, so that makes it difficult. I'm talking to you all, and I'm talking to you all, and the screen's behind me. So I'll figure it out eventually. It might be a little rough. We're talking research. Now, some of you all love data. You're going to dig this meeting. It's going to be pretty nice. There's a lot of research. Some of you are not into research. Hold on. There's a lot of information we're going to go through. It's kind of that old metaphor of a lot of stuff in a small little bag, right? That's kind of what's going to happen. I can't go through every bit of research. Tried to, what we are showing though, we felt like what matters. So there might be some things that we know that actually just couldn't make it into tonight's presentation because we're trying to fit a window. We have an agenda we need to stick through. So we're going to go through it. I will say generally this is always a pretty fun presentation, and I expect the same tonight, by the way. Let me remind you what we're doing, if I could, please. We're bragging about our community. We're bragging about the village government. We're bragging about our place, where we live, where we raise our kids, where we have businesses. That should be a lot of fun. And so, first and foremost, branding a community and in this case, we have a responsibility. I'll remind you, I told you this last time I was here, branding the village of LaGrange is also branding the place, LaGrange. We, unlike Coca-Cola, I'll use that example, we can't distinguish, well, we're just a place that writes checks to employees. We're that. We're also a place that everyone lives, and as a result, you can't brand one without the other. Now, the challenge is, unlike a traditional company like Coca-Cola, you don't have control over things because of that dynamic, right? There's other organizations that use the name LaGrange, for one. In your case, there's a lot of other cities that use LaGrange. We'll talk about that a little bit. So it makes it much more dynamic. It's very challenging. And by all means, it's not limited to a logo. I want to remind us to that. That is one aspect, one deliverable in the scope of work of this, but I just hopefully want to educate everybody or get them to expand their mind a little bit that when we talk about branding LaGrange, we're talking about telling our story. And that story's told a lot of different ways. If I was giving you a business card and I worked for LaGrange, a logo will be on there to help us with that story. If I was doing some pole banners downtown, maybe not need the logo, maybe have a different message, but that's how it tells a story. The type of businesses that we have in our community says something about our story. So there's a lot of ways we tell our story. The goal isn't that we're not NASCAR. The goal isn't to flip a logo on every single thing that we have. It's to tell our story in the most authentic way possible that embraces who we are. And so that's really what this is about. And the identity stuff will come out of this first, and we'll use that on a lot of things. You're right, website and a lot of our communications for sure. But the story's told by every single person in this room. Part of the story of LaGrange is where I just had a nice plate of nachos at your place, sir, right? You know, that I was told in research, you give me one business that personifies LaGrange. You're at the top of the list. Not the only one, so some of y'all don't get your feathers ruffled. Right? But it's because, it's family at Palmer's Place. Everybody goes there, right? That is LaGrange, right? It's to start it off there. So that's the story. That's how you tell the story of LaGrange. And so we're going to go through a bunch of research. I start just a little bit slow because I have to make sure I get us on the same page like right now, but then I'm going to go pretty quickly. So hopefully, if you're one of those that aren't really into research that much, I'm going to entertain you anyway, because where you live and what you care about should be really entertaining, okay? The goal isn't here, isn't just to tell you all the good stuff. You might see a few things in here that you're like, what? I don't even agree with that. I don't like it. I'm just reporting the news. Reporting what we heard, okay? Don't get, and by the way, if you do see something that you're not a real big fan of, it's okay. Everything's not perfect, right? But it's pretty good here. You all got it really good. I mean, this is good news that you're going to see. But there might be something that doesn't make sense for some reason. Write it down. Follow up. Everybody. I'm not in a hurry getting out of here, so I can answer any questions about research. So I'm going to hammer through it. I don't know that there's time for questions after this or not, depending on how fast I go through this. But I'm not going anywhere after it, so I don't mind explaining a few things. Okay. Cool. All right, here we go. Oh gosh, I got to get this thing going. All right, I already talked about all that. Just remind you real quick what our program looks like. We are on time schedule. It's going as expand. There's really 4 phases of our project. I'm a marketing guy, so I like to use ease and to be cute, but the reality is it's research, strategy, creative, and a plan, right? The exploration stage is what really I'm reporting on tonight, and after tonight we'll go into really evaluating where do we go with it next. And then the creative process, what everybody wants to talk about with the branding is, what do we look like? And that's where we start the storytelling process, and that's definitely the fun part. But engagement, and you used that word earlier, a lot of people in this community have been engaged in this project so far, and that's what it takes. We will have a strong story as a community because people are engaged to tell our story, not just one entity telling our story. So the engagement on the back end, our action plan, is also a part of this process. So just to remind you what we're doing. Little bitty words on bullet points. We're going to have this a few times tonight, so I'll try my best. Just what I want you to know, there's a lot of research that was done. A lot of people in this room and a lot of people that are not in this room. We had a lot of one-on-one interviews with some of the community stakeholders. We had about 5 different focus groups, I believe. The brand working group, we had a great session. The village department heads, the LGBA board, many of the restaurants, retail, economic, a lot of folks were involved in this. We actually did a community survey. Our goal is to have 300 completed interviews. From a research perspective, that's what we needed to be reliable statistically. You see, we had almost 1,000. That tells me something about an engaged community and maybe some enthusiasm about this process. So that was really nice to have that many people participate. We also went outside of LaGrange in the area. We wanted to find out what your neighbors think about you. That's pretty important. So we have almost 800 what we call attitude awareness perception studies. We also then looked at secondary data. I won't spend a lot of time about that tonight because it gets too geeky. But we did look at what data says about you. But believe it or not, the type of products that this community buys, where you spend your money, tells us what kind of people you are. Makes sense? Birds of a feather flock together. So we looked at that data. And then also online, believe it or not, someone's interested in moving their family here. They're not going to pick up the phone and call village manager or community development. They're going to go online. They're going to go to LaGrangeIL.com. Would you agree with me that they might do that? Wouldn't you, if you're going to go check out LaGrangeIllinois.com? You don't want them going there because they're not going to find anything about you if they do that. Oops. But that's why we went through this exercise, right? And I'll show you that later. So we kind of looked at your footprint online. All right. So and here's another way of saying, yeah, a lot of people are involved. Now, if your business is not on this list, don't worry. The goal of this isn't to be complete, just to make a point. There's a lot of people involved in this process. It's not just Steve Chandler and our team from Tennessee. All of our research, as you saw, that we didn't do just one research study. We did about, 8 of them? We're looking at, really, what does LaGrange say about itself when we're asking you directly or just observing you online, perhaps? And what do others say about you? At the end of the day, you can kind of boil it all down to that. Who are you? What's your reputation? So everything we did is based on that. I'm going to go through each one of those pieces. Like I said, I'm about to go pretty quickly. Some doesn't make sense. You can ask Charity. Just playing. All right, here we go. So a community stakeholder. So I'm reporting the news, all right? This is what we heard. This is qualitative. Remember, we spoke with about between 25 one-on-one interviews and about 50 some odd people in focus groups. So that's kind of the audience for this. It's not quantitative data. It's qualitative, but so I've tried to give you headlines along the way to kind of report the news, right? So what did we learn from talking to the community stakeholders? Driven by the vast variety of restaurants. You have a lot of restaurants. In fact, that's probably the number one thing I heard was we have restaurants for everybody. Whatever you want, we have it. It's downtown LaGrange is a central gathering place mainly because of our restaurants. Not just the number of them, by the way. It is the diversity of them. It's vibrant downtown. Makes for a strong attractor. So we got a heavy dose of that. Again, you should know most of this stuff. Oh, by the way, one thing I forgot to say. I promised you this a few months ago. If anything I show you today is what I call a rabbit out of the hat, like you didn't see it coming, it's probably not true. This should be, of course, that's who we are. This process never goes great because you discover something you didn't know. This process is built so we can focus and be the best us we can be, and we're not. You all know too much about your community, probably, right? This is about focus of what we are, what we're best at. So it should be somewhat obvious, but this process is going to give you the confidence to be bold with it and not water it down by all the little things. Does that make sense? So you're going to get a heavy dose of, well, of course, if we did our job, the answer is, well, we knew most of that stuff, yeah. Now we know what we're going to do when you go to the storytelling process, what it's going to be about. There should be no secrets about that. So yeah, if I'm going to start it, downtown, restaurants, the big part of who we are, right? No doubt about it. Our quality of life. Generic terms, usually most communities like to talk about their quality of life. You all speak it a lot, though. You're really serious about it. Obviously, you're downtown, but the safety, families, the fact that it's walkable, we can get to really anywhere we want in Chicago is a big part of, you have an interstate on both sides and a train. I mean, you're less than 20 minutes from both airports. I mean, it's pretty amazing proximity, and it's a very affluent community, so you're able to enjoy a lot of things and access a lot of things here. This is a really expansive point. Quality of life, like I said, it's kind of general, but for you all, it is why you live here. A lot of strengths. I'm not going to go through every single itty-bitty point, but what the stakeholders told us were our strengths are downtown, absolutely. A location access, I already talked about. Restaurant variety, I already talked about. Education was really, really, really big. You are very proud of your schools here, of course, with Lyons Township. We talked about the quality of life, more strengths. The LGBA, it's interesting. Not every community has an organization like that. The folks with LGBA, you all are a big part of the voice of this community, and you know that. The business of the community is out our doors, and you all really do a good job of banding them together. So you're very active. You're fortunate as a community to have them. Friendly attitude. Everybody's pretty good. This isn't my opinion, by the way. I agree, but this is what you all said, right? Your stakeholders. We're not flashy. We're not snooty. Now, usually what happens is when someone tells me they're not snooty, that means they think some one of their neighbors are, by the way. I'm just letting you know. Pet parade, we heard a lot about that. I've never heard of pet parade in my life. I was amazed and totally fascinated by the idea of a pet parade. I didn't believe the person that told me until I went and looked at YouTube videos. That tells me a lot about this place, no doubt about it. Obviously, your historic homes, Village Hall, being very iconic in the community. So we heard a lot of those strengths. We did hear some weaknesses. Again, I'm not going to belabor them, but I have to report it, right? Some people said, well, our downtown offers limited assets beyond restaurant. We're too many restaurants, right? So we heard that. We heard that some. We need some more stuff, right? High taxes, we heard about that a little bit. High housing prices. I know there's some of you already like you disagree with me. I'm just telling you the news. Noise, it sometimes can get a little loud. We have a highway going through here too. We heard some of that. There's some opportunities, improve the art scene. There was a big need of that. Like there was a lot of interest in this. There's a lot of discussion about the potential of your art scene. I think it's an extension of your restaurants and your wellness shops that you have downtown. I think arts are just a natural thing that would work well for a community like this. Obviously, more retail opportunities. Making it even more walkable is important. Affordable housing actually did come up. I know that's been a topic that you all talk about a lot. You have to, the way I heard it, I'm sure. Threats, wasn't a lot of them. I think the one we heard the most was just growth and evolution of similar neighboring communities. We're not the only ones out there. We're not the only nice, affluent community around. Our neighbors, it's relative. So we cannot be idle. We can't just assume it's going to go great for us all the time. We have to work hard. I know you believe that, or I would not be standing here. But it's definitely on the mind of the stakeholders that we have to make sure we stay alert and pushing ourselves. We asked the question, what's the most brag-worthy asset? Some people are like, well, we don't like to brag. That's not my point. When we ask this question, we want to know, what are you most proud of? And so asking the question this way does it. And so there's no doubt about it. The schools in downtown, there's a lot of other things. I use a word cloud to report it because it's more fun. In a research presentation, you all know the rules of a word cloud. I hope the larger the word is, the more often we heard it from our 70 so people, I guess. So there's other things there. I know it's tough to see. Grange Theater, our access to Chicago, railroad, the station, but schools, downtown restaurants, and some of your festivals definitely prevailed what people really wanted to brag about. And ultimately, isn't that what we're talking about, is what makes us such a great place? So I thought that was nice. Here's actually some of the answers. Some people don't like the word cloud, so I do it another way, right? Now, this is a qualitative, not quantitative, but we did list the frequency of how often we heard it from our notes, because I want to make sure you understand, when we say people said schools a lot, I mean, you see 30 of my, 70 some odd answers, with schools were at the top of the list, right? So it kind of gives you an idea, just the emphasis anyway. So, and I also, we circled the kind of where you see the circles, basically, I think the big observation is it's downtown related. Most of the energy and the activity and the emphasis of our community is all around downtown. So we kind of circled those. I mean, if I could pick I could circle them a different way if I wanted to, but what we observed was, wow, look at all these downtown influences. And reality is, like, I didn't circle the pet parade. I bet that happens downtown, doesn't it? Right? So you see my point. I just trying to make a point that downtown's getting a lot of emphasis. If I didn't circle pet parade and it should be downtown, then it just emphasizes it more, right? So a lot of downtown assets for sure. We asked the question, what makes LaGrange unique? And actually, your location, access, the design of the community, something in that ballpark was mentioned more than anything, overwhelmingly. And it is pretty unique, right? I mean, there's a lot of people close to Midway. There's a lot of people close to O'Hare. There's a lot of people that's somewhat convenient to Chicago. You have all of that. You really do have a great position as far as your location and some of the infrastructure that was done. Things that are not done by accident, by the way. And I think that's really, really important. Oh, by the way, if it looks like I'm foreshadowing something, I totally am. No doubt about it. All right? So you all were absolutely designed for this. There were a lot of comments around strong business community, by the way. A lot of comments about that. So the LGBA would get brought up a lot. People felt like people work together for business. So I thought that was kind of worth noting. And I kind of went a little deeper here, you can see. So there are a lot of comments about what makes LaGrange unique. We got some downtown, more quality of life, local flair, things like that. All right. We also asked the question, what is LaGrange's reputation among outsiders? What do you think people think of us? Now, this often gives me a notion of where the pride is and that people feel like, are they strong? Are they going to be confident about their community? Again, this is qualitative, not quantitative. I can tell you, we still count the number of positive and negatives just to give us an idea. About 9 out of 10 comments are all going to be really positive. So people feel like you have a really strong reputation around LaGrange. I think that's important. Whether it's because of our downtown. Again, downtown's top of the list. See how this process is already working? How many times have I mentioned downtown being the top of an answer, right? So you see where this is going to go, right? That's how it's designed. Good for families. A lot of families, again, still. Great location. And you can see the other things. All right? Yeah, there are a few negatives. I'll leave it here for 5 seconds and 5 seconds only. What were the negatives when we ask? All right, so we've got some expensive. Some people said we are stuck up. I don't know. Can you believe that? They must be newcomers, I'm sure, right? Lack of parking. I know that's always a fun discussion for sure. By the way, and I can't emphasize this enough. 9 out of 10 comments were positive. So we asked, what are the challenges that keep LaGrange from being more successful? So you can get an idea what those are. High taxes, but also resources for infrastructure. We think our taxes are high, but we don't have enough resources for infrastructure to keep things up. Lack of unified vision for growth. I'm a communications guy, so that one jumps out to me, that a handful of people said that, because that's just communication there. People need to know. I just want to remind us that, and I see this a lot, or I wouldn't say it to you all. Sometimes we think we've communicated well because we made a big Facebook post about it. Or we had one, we made a big deal, a proclamation at maybe a meeting like this at some point. And good old-fashioned marketing says you got to hit us in the head a lot of times. Don't overestimate how much communication you have to do to let people know about things, okay? So I see this enough to remind you all are so locked into what's going on in your community, and most people are not engaged as much as you all are. So just great communication over and over again is really, really important. All right, I love this. We went through a fun little exercise. I wish I could share more of the exercise with you, but I can't. But basically what it came down to is you all said, you know who we are? We went through an exercise like all the different communities, and what kind of car would Western Springs be? What would you think it would be? I'm not going to tell you because it's on TV, and they'll get mad at us and come riot or something, right? Right, but so you all talked about Western Springs or Hinsdale. That's why I go through the exercise. We talk about other communities because it's easier to talk about what kind of the personification of a community. So when we got to you all, you're like, now we're nice, but we're not too flashy. We're kind of like a Jeep Grand Cherokee. And the whole group agreed, that's right, we are. We're a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now, if you own a Jeep Grand Cherokee, raise your hand, because that would be really fun right now. There we go. We've got one here at least, right? Now, there was also an Audi that was mentioned in there quite a bit, too. I thought that was fun. We asked, I didn't have it in the presentation. We asked, if you were a famous person, who would it be? Andy Griffith came up. Tom Hanks was mentioned by half of the people at the table, and it was like a hidden little ballot thing. So we didn't tell them, but half the people literally wrote down Tom Hanks because he's as big as it gets, but also incredibly practical, down to earth, approachable. Everyone loves Tom Hanks. So there you go. You're Tom Hanks driving a Jeep Grand Cherokee. All right, there you go. I'm seeing a marshal for the next Christmas parade. Okay, all right. Okay, in-market visual audit. We did a first impression too. I always think it's kind of valuable since we don't live here to just give you our first impression of just what it looked like. So if you don't like it, then blame me 100% because it's no one's input but our team kind of looking at things. I'll go real quick about this. I still have more of the presentation to do, but it's nice to give you all real feedback, right? Welcome entrance, gate, whatever you want to call it, gateway signage. So we kind of ranked it on some things. I know this is on your agenda, by the way, so it's like a low-hanging fruit for me to go after, right? When I already know that you're going to fix it, of course, right? So please fix it. Goodness. No, I'm just playing. Well, you know what I want to say is that sign, and I just chose that one. You all know where it is, though, right? It doesn't have to be exactly where the line of demarcation is. Just this little tip, right? Sometimes the best place for a sign is the best place for a sign, not where's the actual boundary. So that was the first thing I noticed about that. I was like, that's the where I almost got hit trying to look at that sign, and because it wasn't at a convenient location to go, hey, welcome to LaGrange. This is a great place. Families are awesome here. Go to Palmer's Place, have some cookies, right? But I can't read that stuff and feel welcome if it's not in a good place. You all, I'm not gonna keep going about the sign. I was just trying to have fun with you. I know it's on your agenda, and I'll just say, yep, should be. Your wayfinding's really great, though. I don't know when that initiative was done, but that's especially in and around the downtown. It's, you know what, y'all do a pretty good job. The production quality of it's really good. The location of it, we rated it a little low actually on location because I found the sign once after I found the parking garage, and our other team did the same thing. They're like, I needed it earlier. I needed it a little bit more active. If that's productive feedback on that. And it was really high. I remember that. Anyway, central main corridor streets. Don't forget, this is branding your community more than a logo is. Your streets look great. I also think this is also on the agenda of still enhancing it and keep doing it. Just because you do something good doesn't mean you can't do it better. But overall, your streets are wide. They're clean. It has to be a community effort. I'm sure there's a big program that LGBA has to keep them clean all the time. I picked up some trash today. Want a little credit for that, by the way? You bet. All right. Downtown businesses, architecture looks great. It kind of tells a story. I mean, the business types. Someone asked me about this. What do you mean business types? Why are you rating our business types, and is there a visual brand theme? Well, again, I wanted to give you feedback from an outsider. Well, obviously, you have one brand theme, restaurants. That's a theme. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, it's a theme. In business type. But we also noticed that there's been this influence of what I think you all call wellness businesses, right? But there was a lot of what I like to call sense stimulus, right? I've got arts and wine, and I've got there's another painting class. I've got another place that sells nothing but herbs or oils and stuff, and you all have a lot of new little businesses that are very sensory oriented, and of course physical being a lot of the wellness shops. I thought that was kind of interesting, and it's a natural extension from restaurants, one of the best sensory experiences you could have. You talk about you've had this discussion of having an experiential downtown. I think you're on your way to doing a really good job of that, and you can have a lot of play with that too. Right, but having experiential downtown means engaging the senses, and the types of businesses that you all have do exactly that. It stood out to us a lot. You all really active with your pole banners. In fact, one of you, I think I spoke to you, that designed these. I can't remember which gentleman it was. Was he here anyway? But yeah, so you're really active. That's just the one I showed, the LaGrange that you all have had for quite some time, I guess. For the most part, I think y'all do a really good job of those things. I know y'all have gotten into some of the smaller ones lately. Those are, y'all do the little small banners, I've noticed. Yeah, you might want to get, those get a little tough to read, but when you're walking, I guess it works well. Okay, enough about the signs. Sidewalks are great. I'm going to keep going here. Landscape, I'm going outside of downtown. Your houses, people love taking care of their yard around here. They're very proud of their yard. It makes a big difference to someone driving through that doesn't live here. Landscaping is a big deal. And so I believe, I don't know if you all actually have any type of programs where you recognize yards. Do you do that? Like yard of the month type of thing? Incentives maybe? That's crazy. No, it's not. I actually think that'd be a great idea to, you know what I would expect from a place that takes care of the yards like you do? To find out that there was some incentive to do it, that they actually recognize people. Why? Because it's that important to a community. Like, that's storytelling right there, and it's engaging your community, believe it or not, right? They're proud of their yard. That tells me this must be a great place to live. Yeah, so, okay, we got a lot of signs again. Okay, let's go on. I don't want to talk about welcome sign. All right, community survey. Remember we had almost 1,000 people take the community survey? Here's what we learned. Downtown is the heart and energy of LaGrange. Yet again, here we go, right? We asked about most brag-worthy asset was downtown. Top business asset, downtown. Top reason to visit or start a business in LaGrange was downtown. The most iconic visual of LaGrange was your downtown, right? No matter how we asked the question, downtown was at the top. What is it the community's most proud of? They rated it 4, you'll see this in a second, 4.5 out of 5. Downtown is energetic and exciting, 4.2 out of 5. It is, no matter what we ask, no matter who we ask, downtown, 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 for sure. Many restaurants lend downtown LaGrange its vibrancy, so everyone's well aware of that too. You've made a strong reputation inside and outside about your restaurants in downtown, so we heard a lot about that. Schools are a very important point of pride. Again, you're like, well, didn't he already say this a while ago? No, those were the 50 to 75 stakeholders. I'm talking about 1,000 people in your community now. This is what they're saying. So it changes. Usually stakeholders are more involved, no more, right? They know every little thing. So this gets a little bit more broad, especially with that many answers. So it's interesting to see if they line up or not. I think it's worth noting, we went through a whole line of questioning in our survey. What are you about what they're proud of? Nothing was higher ranked than your schools. It's very, very important to this community. What are your highest quality of life attributes? Schools are also the main reason why 89% of your community believe LaGrange always. Remember I said we went through a line of questioning about what do you think outsiders think about your community? And 89% said the reason we have such a great reputation is because of our schools. So, pretty big. High commercial rents and property taxes are your main obstacle. Again, that's what other people said, right? We ask, okay, so I'll explain this once because you'll see a few times I do the scale. We ask a scale of 1 to 5. What I'll say is it's naturally what you'll think is 3 is average. That's good. No, it's not. Because when you're talking about your community, I do not want my community going, it's okay. Right? Wouldn't you agree that's what average is just okay? If we're just okay, we're not really advocates of our community. We're not promoting our community. So when you when you see these scales, we want to be 4 or higher. All right? 3.5, I'm okay about. It means maybe I could use a little bit, it's good, but it's not, they're not promoting it. But I want promoters of a community to build a strong reputation, okay? So we ask, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 is not at all likely to recommend, 5 is extremely likely to recommend. How likely are you to recommend the Village of LaGrange to a friend or colleague as a place to visit? Place to live, 4.6. Advocates. Your community promotes this as a place to live. Well done. As a place to visit, 4.4. Also, well done. Now, this makes me raise my eyebrow. As a place to start a business, 3.4. Now, because I've done so much research for you all, I have my reasons why I think that might be the case. My speculation, but it definitely jumps out. 3.4 is not bad for most communities, but when you have a 4.6 and a 4.4, and we know your businesses are strong, we heard that already in a lot of the research. I'm kind of raising my eyebrow a little bit. Like, why is that significantly lower than the other ones? Everybody follow me there? My speculation, I guess I have to answer that, don't I? My speculation is there's maybe some perceived communication gaps. Maybe we saw some things about high rents. Remember, I've already seen comments about high rents. There's perception that there's some turnover. I'm not convinced that it's as high as some people think. If that makes sense, but I've definitely heard in the research that there's perception of some, and there's probably some businesses that didn't make it, and people got bummed out about it, and they won't forget about it, right? So I'm not real sure, but it makes me raise my eyebrow a little bit. Maybe we'll learn more. Why did you rate LaGrange the way you did as a place to live? Don't stare at that right column. Look at the left, though. Great schools, restaurants, public transportation, family-friendly downtown, same things over and over again. Great if you have kids in public schools. Why did you rate LaGrange the way you did as a place to visit? Same things. By the way, I thought it was interesting. We were told this isn't really for tourists. Not that we don't mind guests. We like guests and visitors. We're not a touristy destination, though. We were told that over and over again. I thought that was kind of interesting. A great suburb, not a tourist destination. Again, this is from the community, and I think that was important to them not to be a tourist destination. That's what I'd say. Why did you rate LaGrange the way you did as a place to start a business? Now, notice the balance on this now versus the other two answers, right? So it's a vibrant downtown. The right type of business will be successful. A lot of foot traffic, a lot of retail opportunity. But you see these other, and again, these are their perceptions. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but these are the perceptions that we're getting. A lot of little shops on restaurants go up and not survive more than a year, right? So, which of the following do you talk about most when talking about the village of LaGrange? List your top 3. You can see downtown LaGrange, schools, and walkability tops the list. Location Chicago right behind it. One time I gave this presentation and the library got all mad at me because they weren't on the list really high. They cornered me after the presentation and wanted to know why the library wasn't high on their list as assets. I said, I don't know. It's a marketing problem. We'll talk about it later. What is the most iconic visual that best represents the village of LaGrange? Downtown, followed by Village Hall, and then our homes. And a nod should be given to LaGrange Theater, too. So some of you all are going to be like, you know what, I think we need to have the clock. I just randomly picked that one, but some of you are going to want the clock on your logo. I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm not going to do it. No, we're not doing the clock on a logo. Is that okay? All right? Are we serious? Oh, my goodness. And you see why. And that's what, and when you go to Charity and go, I want the clock on the logo, she's going to pull up this slide right here and go, no, I'm not doing a clock on a logo. All right? I'm kind of joking. I'm not really. Okay, I got to go. I just got the you need to hurry up, Steve motion. How do you think outsiders within a 25-mile radius of LaGrange perceive LaGrange? Positive. That's good, right? Positive, positive, positive. Got to go. All right, we went outside. Remember I spoke to about 700 people outside in the Chicago area. None of them are in the city of LaGrange. The village. Here's the deal. You're known for, here's your reputation. Like, here it is now. Like, you think you know what it is. Here it is. It's known for its convenient location with easy access to Chicago. I don't have enough time to let you read all of it. LaGrange is well loved among people like you. People think you're cool. Isn't that great? Doesn't that feel good? Right? LaGrange is well loved among outsiders. You have a positive reputation. Love might be a little strong. Outsiders know LaGrange by your downtown. Surprise, surprise, surprise. That's what they know about you. So I have a lot of data right here that I'm going to skip over now, but I want you to know that I can say with great confidence, people know you for your downtown. All right? 3 most attractive things about LaGrange: your downtown, your location in Chicago, and your shopping stores. That stood out to someone I showed this to earlier. Like, our shopping. Like, yeah, your shopping stood out. And restaurants there for sure. And your old homes are mentioned in it as well. All right? Which of the following is LaGrange best known for? Downtown, location in Chicago, restaurant variety. Is that the same one? Most attractive. First one was the most attractive. The next one is what are we best known for? They're the same answers, though. Sometimes they're not, but in your case, it is. Trust me, there's some communities that are known for something they don't want to be known for. Okay, so that's why we asked the question. Very consistent. All right. Now, we looked at data, the secondary data that I mentioned. It's called Tapestry. It's basically, there's a company called Esri. They're out of San Bernardino. They're used mostly for economic development. And when Starbucks, they're pretty smart at what they do. They know exactly who their best customer is, where the highest concentrations are, and that's where they have data. This is the same data. This is the same data Starbucks looks at. Probably looked at it when they put one across the street. All right, it's based on one simple premise: birds of a feather flock together. Birds of a feather flock together, and we are a lot like our neighbors, right? I mean, we drive the same kind of cars. Apparently, that's Jeep Grand Cherokee, and we shop the same places. We all eat at Palmer's, and so we're a lot alike. We wear the same clothes. More than you like to admit, you're a lot like your neighbors. All right? There's 67, so this company has taken all that data of people based on where they live geographically and their socioeconomic status and created 67 types of people all across the country. And as you can imagine, cities like Chicago have most all of them because they're so diverse. Usually the smaller the community, the less of those segments that you have. Does that make sense? All right, so I'll go real quickly, but I tried my best to explain it in 2 minutes. So there's 3 different ways of looking at it. The first one is by the mode of life that you are, similar lifestyle or life stage. You don't have to necessarily be the same age or the same economics, but there could be a similar stage in life. There's 14 of them. As you can see, you only hit on about 5 of them, and especially the top 2. They give them nice little catchy branded nicknames so you have an idea who they are right off the bat. Affluent estates are exactly what you think. The people in that life mode have made money somewhere else, and they like to live in a nice house near what they want, but out of the hustle and bustle. Suburbs are really big with affluent estates. And middle ground, by definition, they're actually a very conservative group. Middle ground people are pretty conservative. They like things to be the same way. That's the fastest way I could tell you what those are. Another way of looking at this data is how you live. In other words, are you independent and do not depend on the outside world? Or are you completely dependent on somewhere else? So the difference would be very rural and or metro cities. As you can see, LaGrange is all about being a suburban periphery, right? You're absolutely a suburb, no doubt about it. You are a suburb through and through. It's part of the package of living here is to be a suburb. And then the last way I look at this data, what I can tell you as quickly as I can, remember that I said there's 67 segments? Number one is the most affluent household in the country. Most affluent house, so probably more like Brentwood in Southern California, Bel Air, that's gonna be ones, okay? 67 is poverty in most cases, right? And everywhere in between, okay? I tell you that because do you see the numbers associated with yours? Professional pride, 1B. Look 2 down, top tier, 1A. You have the top 2 most affluent types of households in the country make up 48% of your community. So you're a very, 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 very affluent community. Now your neighbors are too. I would imagine they look just like this, but it definitely tells us a lot about you. I can't really take much time, but you are very tech savvy. Communications, online, social media should be at the top of your list. It should be a priority, right? You'll actually have a lot of young families here. That's important to know. You know what young families do once their kids grow up? They leave. So I think having a lot of young families now means in about 10 to 15 more years, you're going to have a lot of empty nesters. And so what are you going to do to keep those? That's the first thing that comes to my mind, actually. Your families and taking care of them. The schools are good. That's already a priority. So that's something to think about. All right. Last thing, and then we'll be done. I'm like a few minutes over, but it's super entertaining, isn't it? All right. Making sure I'm getting a big hook by Charity over there. All right. I like looking at the digital audit because most of this is just observational instead of asking the question like we did with everything else. There's 4 main themes that we saw in your digital audit. I mean, there are all kinds of things that we see, but the 4 big ones that jumped out. By name, LaGrange struggles to stand out as it competes against other entities and communities of the same name for attention. I heard the song today. LaGrange is very frequently described and showcased as a high-ranking Chicago suburb for families. It's how you are defined by others online. I'll show you. Village Hall and downtown LaGrange are your most used visuals online. I mean, half the entities in town, you go to their website, it's a picture of Village Hall or a snapshot of downtown, right? But that tells me a lot about it. At least it creates an expectation. And family-friendly suburbs with high quality of life for families are a common selling point for other nearby communities. I'll prove it to you. So first and foremost, I did what most people do I'm interested in LaGrange. I'm going to Google LaGrange, right? What do you think comes up? Absolutely. Right, all right? No doubt about it. So if you Google LaGrange for you all, it's not just the first listing, it's the entire first page, right? Not trying to be really too cute, although I tried a little bit, right? But that's important, that's our name. So it absolutely illustrates the point of what I'm saying. You don't really have control over things like a Coca-Cola does. The #1 listing for your community is ZZ Top, all right? Now, not only that, now I was told this is wrong, but this is the data. I looked at citydata.com. Actually, it's a great website. Look at little communities all over the country. It lists 9 different communities named LaGrange. All right? 9 different ones. Now, you're the largest one, but the other's 9 different LaGranges. So we don't even own the place is a city, right? I mean, it's a song. It's 9 different places at least. Now, the first listing that comes up for LaGrange, Illinois, first of all, is the Village of LaGrange. Yay, that's exactly what you want. Congratulations. Village of LaGrange, when you type in LaGrange, Illinois, is the first thing that comes up. It actually counters against the #1 rule of Google. #1 rule of Google is you are what you say you are. So what should pop up when you type in LaGrange, Illinois is LaGrangeIL.com. That's what it should be. There's only one reason Google would not put that #1 listing. That is if the content on it had nothing to do with it. that's actually what is the case for you guys. But number 2 listing is Wikipedia, right? And I point out what they say, the village of LaGrange, a suburb of Chicago. So even they're already calling you a suburb. That's how they're branding you right off the bat. That's what you're known for. Also, if you look at search activity, in other words, the actual number of searches that happen on Google each month, the average, it's right here on the screen. There's about 66, oh, that's so tiny. Sorry about that. There's 6,600 searches for LaGrange, Illinois a month. I don't know what they're searching for, by the way, but there's 6,600 people searching for it. And I just want to give you a context. So I tried to list some of your other communities, right? Western Springs has about 5,400. For those of you who are like competing against them, congratulations. Oak Park, Illinois, look at that, 18,000 a month. Brookfield, 4,400. Oak Brook, 1,400. Where's Naperville? Naperville's 27,000, right? Now, actual village of LaGrange, there's only 1,000. So this kind of lets you know how much are people just looking for us for some reason or another, whether they're looking for schools or looking, I've heard about it, right? It gives you an idea of just the natural awareness, a top of mind that people have for LaGrange, okay? Now, your website, I'm not going to critique your website too much. I think what our takeaway from it is it looks classic, historic tone, colors, texture, a lot of earth tones, which comes across as historic. No social media presence. Now, there might be, but I didn't see it. I think you guys are active on it. The policemen are. Is fire, are you guys pretty active on it? No? But that's I expect a great community has great communications. And so I was absolutely, as your professional, that you've asked to talk up to you about this. The social media is super important. I don't think that's the first time someone's told you that, from what I understand. And we're gonna go down that road as well in our recommendations of how we start communicating well and representing our community well. So we need that social media. It's just what our constituents require of us. Your mobile version, by the way, looks like this. See the difference? Which one do you think people look at the most? The desktop or the mobile? It's way more than 50%. All right? So this is more of what people think about you, what they see about you from an impression standpoint than that. All right? That's just the way we work now. That's statistics. That's not my opinion. By the way, Village Hall, like I said, it's used a lot. I don't even know who I'll put on here now. But look, Village Hall gets used a lot. There's the LGBA side. Okay, great. So we see that a lot with things. Other online images that are seen, by the way, when I say common online images, I hope you all do this. Go to LaGrange, Illinois on Google and go to images and look at what images pop up. Go to Pinterest and see what people put up. Right? Go look at Twitter. Go look at Instagram and see what people are putting up for your community. All right? It's telling the story of your community right now. What you're going to see a lot of are train stations, some block picture of downtown, and a lot of homes. And for those of you who love your endearing clock, it gets on there sometimes too. All right? I know it's important. Right? All right. But those are the images of LaGrange. By the way, TripAdvisor, #1 travel website. Palmer, do you like TripAdvisor? You do? Yelp and all that stuff? Yelp too? Okay, making sure. All right, your all's restaurants have lots and lots of ratings, and they're all very high. So you all are a restaurant destination, no doubt about it. That map tells me a lot about LaGrange already. I don't know much about it, and I see that map, I'm like, wow, they got a lot of restaurants. So it immediately tells you a story about it. By the way, I promise you I'm about done. Wikipedia says LaGrange was designed to be the ideal suburban village. That was how it was created, according to Wikipedia. So this wasn't an accident. You didn't just happen to sprawl into this. From the very beginning, you were designed. The thought process was, this is what we wanted to be. And I was like, really, is that true? So I looked again. Did you know the Encyclopedia of Chicago says your founder set out to take advantage of Chicago middle class and upper class suburban fever? That's what he had in mind. So the fact of your location at the interstates, and I think the fact of maybe sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I don't know what role you all played in where the airports were, but boy, you sure are benefiting from it, right? But the focus of downtown the way it is, the more I started looking into some other sources of LaGrange, you all were designed to be this way. You were created to be this way. And in fact, guess what? You're doing it. as you know, I've walked through the Village Hall and I see these things on framed all over the place, as you should. But you know, your ranking, there's a site called Niche that actually describes communities all across the country, right? They have you listed in like 6 things in the top 30 for Illinois or Chicago suburbs as far as best places for families to do this and do this. In other words, you all are in a lot of best places lists. They give you an overall city community rating of A+, by the way. And you're used to these lists, right? LaGrange makes Chicago Magazine's best place to live, best Illinois cities for families, 10 best Chicago suburbs to live in. You're always on the list. So are the same other people, but you're always on the list. And you know what? We're doing exactly what Cossett said he was going to do. Design a community, design a place to be a great suburb to Chicago. Well, you're doing it. Thrill List, that's cool. One of the more popular suburbs for former Chicago dwellers, considered the most transit-friendly burb in the area by Thrill List. That's pretty cool, right? One of the best Chicago suburbs for families, the definitive list of Chicago suburbs for every interest, right? Love it. I love reading what they say about it too, but I can't. And what? What is this? A Twitter search, LaGrange, Illinois, is a news media that has nothing to do with LaGrange, Illinois. Even when we did the online audit, the very first, remember Google, you don't own your name. Remember I went through the Google exercise, you don't own your name? Well, now I'm on social media looking for LaGrange, and guess what I found? It's not you guys. That needs to be, now I wouldn't pursue this. Now this is the challenge of online world. You can't pursue it legally. They've got there first. But they have nothing to do with LaGrange. Now, I don't think they're very active anymore, so maybe they've lost interest, but they're probably squatting. But that's the Twitter handle of LaGrange IL, is owned by whoever this is, and yep, LaGrangeIL.com is owned by the same person, it looks like. So when it comes to branding, I want to own my name as much as I possibly can, and so this needs to be on our radar screen of we've got to figure out how to get this, or at least overcome it. And by the way, did you know that some people are actually talking to LaGrange IL here in the community on Twitter? Because I went and looked. People think they're talking to you, but they're talking to that news media, whoever that was, right? People expect you to be on social media. They expect you to be able to have a conversation with you. And by the way, you might need it. There might be something happen. I live in Franklin, Tennessee. We had evacuate a 20,000 person music festival 2 days ago. Social media was the #1 way people at the festival knew what was going on. And so you have a lot of festivals here. I don't think social media is not going to be the way that you all communicate what's going on, and you're the voice. So it's great that LGBA communicates, or maybe someone else communicates, but they expect their municipality to communicate with them because they know that's the official word. So I think the emphasis on social media needs to be strengthened. And look, hashtag, forget the Google searches. There's almost 8,000 people have used the hashtag LaGrange, Illinois. You can see the others. I just can't stop and talk about them. And people, by the way, when they're on Instagram, they're sharing food and fun and retail and salons and restaurants. And by the way, whoever Impact Studios is going nuts on Instagram, they use social media. I don't know who Impact Studios is, but that's who those 2 little girls are with. And they're all over it. Maybe we need to get them in for a workshop and they can teach everybody how to do social media. They do a good job. A lot of other people are involved, are pretty heavy too, by the way. Real quick, just want to show you what some logos are of some of the folks around here. Observations, I see a lot of trees, a lot of blues, a lot of greens. So some of you are going to get mad. You're not going to see a logo, a clock tower, a clock, and you're probably not going to see a tree, okay? Just going to tell you. Now, we have a seal with a tree on it, don't we? Well, it's precious, and we'll keep that and preserve it, and we'll let the seal still live. It's important. That's our history and our heritage. I'm just telling you, seriously. So we'll let the seal live, okay? But the logo might not be a tree. By the way, I do this for a living. I promise you, I see more logos with trees than any other thing for the municipalities. And I think the purpose of this project is to be different. It's to be distinct. It's to be who we are, but we don't want to be like everybody else. So I'm just letting you know that now. See, I just saved a ton of time later down the road, didn't I? All right. And there you can see, by the way, if you start looking at all these guys' websites, it looks pretty nice. So the bar's out there. And so I know that's one of the things that's on your agenda after this project. And you know what? The bar's set pretty high. Some places, I think, do a great job with their websites. But you're also going to see great downtowns. You're also going to see high quality of life. You're also going to see some history, maybe some train stations and stuff. Just, right? Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Well, our other communities are selling those same things. So it's going to be a stronger story than that, okay? I told you that was a lot of stuff. I'm sorry I went longer than you expected I would. But there's just so much stuff to tell you, right? All right. Let me show you one thing. I can't tell you what this is other than it's a process we use, and we'll kind of when we get into the creative stage with the branding group, you'll see this come up again. But I just plotted everything on this little chart. Not everything, but a lot of things, because it proves that our brand, our story is so many things in our community. It's all of those categories that you see, the 8 categories, we call them brand pillars of every community. And when you start to plot those out, you realize everybody plays a role. And so when we look at getting this into plan, into action, I want to get all these people involved in branding, not just the village. We're going to do that, but we got to get everyone else involved too. And I'll leave you with 3 brand truths. A brand truth is what we're going to launch into the creative, into the strategy part with the brand group in, okay? Brand truths are the things that we learned in the research that are undeniable, right? You just sat through a presentation, right? There's 3 primary brand truths that if we're going to move forward with the branding of LaGrange, I have to factor these things in, okay? Number 1, LaGrange is what it was designed to be, the quintessential Chicago suburb. It is what it was designed to be, and we need to embrace that, and let's have fun with it. Some people, I think, are embarrassed to embrace being a suburb. I don't know why, but I hear it all the time with communities. Oh, don't call us a suburb. Why? If it works for your quality of life, that's what you meant to be. Downtown LaGrange is the energy, heart, and personality for the village, for living, business, and visiting. So you're talking about LaGrange, you are talking about downtown LaGrange. It is your destination. What's around it feeds into it, but your community, your connection comes from downtown. And then lastly, families and schools are a priority for the people of LaGrange. It has successfully translated to what others say about LaGrange. Don't forget, when we ask people what gave you your positive reputation, the number 1 thing on their list were your schools. So that being a priority allows you to maybe make some tough decisions, I would say, sometimes, and go, you know what? This is important to us, and we're not going to waver. We're not going to sacrifice anything to make sure our quality of life, our family environment that we've created is maintained. And if that means we don't do some of these other things as well, then fine. This is what we're about, and it's what your community's most proud of. It's what you're best known for. So I think you've done a great job with it. All right? So there you go. Thank you so much. That's it, actually. So thank you for your time, and if there's questions about it, Charity probably will take them at another point, but they'll get to me, and we'll help with the brand group the best we can. And the fun stuff's ahead, all right? The storytelling.
Cool. Very good. Steve, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Don't go too far. Just to the board, if there's any questions, basically at this point, both entities here are like a sponge when we see this. We're seeing it both for the first time. And, this has always been a village that has an eye on the next horizon. We're not complacent. We're hungry. I think that's what makes us work. We work through a process. We have a very strong tradition of planning, whether it's urban planning, corridor planning, brand planning. And as I said, we have a couple of different trains on the track right now as it relates to how we communicate, which we know we want to build on. We want to do a lot better. So we see that, and this was very helpful to understand from a data and qualitative standpoint what we will be looking at. But Board of Trustees, any needs at this point, thoughts or questions before we transition to the next part of our agenda? All right, and certainly to the CEDC, through Charity, again, your home base, and we thank you for in advance, because you've really been vetting these very many things. You mentioned parking, Steve. CEDC's done parking. They've done many things beyond that, so we do appreciate that. All right, thank you. Let us, Mr. Clerk, read the items on our agenda this evening.
Certainly. Matters on the consent agenda will be considered by single motion and vote because they have already been fully considered by the board in a previous meeting or have been determined to be of routine nature. Any member of the Board of Trustees may request that an item be moved from the consent agenda to current business for separate consideration. There are several items. Item A, ordinance creating an additional Class B liquor license, 7-Eleven, Inc., doing business as 7-Eleven, number 13324K. Item B, resolution, LTACC, approving an agreement for alarm monitoring and receiving system equipment and services with Johnson Controls. Item C, resolution, ratification of collective bargaining agreement between the Village of LaGrange and the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council, police officers. Item D, approval, small wireless facilities, model pole attachment license agreement and design standards. Item E, award of contract, 2018 sewer repair and lining program. Item F, award of contract, 2018 sewer televising program. Item G, equipment purchase, solar-powered speed signs. Item H, agreement, Safe Built Illinois, LLC, building code inspection services at 35 Shawmut Avenue, parenthetically, pathway/aspired living. Item I, ordinance, disposal of surplus property, police department. Item J, minutes of the Village of LaGrange Board of Trustees regular meeting, Monday, September 24, 2018. Item K, consolidated voucher 180924.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and we have no items under current business this evening. With that, we'll move to item 4 on our agenda, which is public comments regarding items that are on our agenda. With none, we'll move to item 5, approval of the consent agenda.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Holder. Trustee Gale, appreciate that. Discussion on the consent agenda.
I have a couple of questions.
Trustee Holder.
With regard to the, there you are. With regard to the speed signs, do we have any idea of the costs all in of another source? Do we have any feeling for what another source of those are, or is there no other? And when I say all in, I understand that there's it's not just the signs, it's the software, it's the systems, et cetera, that if we were going with another source would be part of the switching costs as well. So do we have any idea what that is?
I can't say with definite confidence, no. I would say it would probably be in the same ballpark.
Are there other people that make those signs?
There are other vendors, yes.
There are a lot, or just 2 or 3? Or
I know of several. I would
Okay.
imagine if I did a little searching, I'd find others.
Okay, cool. And by the way, nice savings on the LTAC agreement. If that's you, Lou, or you, Kurt, just thank you. Really nice job.
Andre. Yeah.
Andre, well, see, I'm looking everywhere else except the middle. Group effort, thank you. And then I do have just a comment with regard to the sewer repair and lining program. I really, we've used In Situ Form before, and they're a great national provider, and I'm glad we're sticking with somebody as proven and with the kind of resources they have.
Thank you, Trustee Holder.
Not to mention, I'm glad they're the lowest cost, too.
Yeah. Other discussions on the motion? All right, seeing none. Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Trustee McCarty.
Aye.
Trustee Kukler.
Aye.
Trustee Kotinek.
Aye.
Trustee Holder.
Aye?
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
With that, the motion passes, and I do want to thank our colleagues at the police department and Andre for the collective bargaining agreement between the parties. That is an agreement. It takes 2 parties. It takes negotiations, and we appreciate that partnership and certainly the safety that your team provides, Chief. So thank you for that. As said, we have no items under current business. Item 7, public comments regarding matters not on our agenda this evening. Seeing none, item 8, trustee comments.
I have one.
Trustee Holder.
I actually should have probably brought this up during the consent agenda, but with regard to the small wireless facilities, can we insist that the ground cabinets be buried and removed as an obstruction? We have it two ways in our packet. One is buried and the other is above ground. And I know there are instances where, in other communities, where they've had those cabinets removed because they were unsightly, to say the least. So I didn't know if the law provides us the capability to insist that they be buried or not.
It does not. The law doesn't speak very specifically on that issue, but the connotation of the law would be that the village cannot require a cabinet with the small wireless facility elements to be undergrounded. I will say this, though, if it's electrical feed or a fiber feed, then those can be required to be underground. If they want, and it's also the case that it's a matter of negotiation. If a wireless services provider wants a small wireless facility in a particular place and a cabinet would be either not safe or otherwise inappropriate above ground, then the village could push to have it underground or push the wireless facility to a different location. But the law itself does not explicitly authorize the village to require undergrounding of that kind of equipment.
Of the cabinet.
So it'll be a negotiation under most circumstances.
Okay. Even though we can define how we want them on poles and that sort of thing.
We can define how we want them on poles to a degree.
To a degree.
Yes.
Ryan?
We're showing it on the drawing that way because we want to push for that to be, for the equipment to be underground from an aesthetic standpoint. However, though, the technology and what's available from the different wireless carriers is that they don't have the systems to put it underground just because of the wet environment, and their technology is designed to go on poles and on the ground. So it was shown there as a means to be our preferable method, but it's just something that the carriers aren't willing to do at this point.
Okay. And then the other question, Mark, is this act, this is all new, and has it been tested at all by any service provider? Has anybody given anybody any pushback that we're going to have to go redo this whole thing again? Or is this already signed, sealed, and delivered and tested in the courts, et cetera?
That's an interesting question, and there are a number of factors that play into the answer. First of all, the wireless services providers have been negotiating with municipalities all along.
Right.
Many of them in the last 6 to 8 months have waited for this act to be put in place because it's beneficial to them in their negotiations with the host municipalities. This law in Illinois is fixed. However, the FCC is on the verge of approving and issuing its own rule related to small wireless facilities. And much of the FCC rule matches Illinois' new act, which, but there are many relatively everyday provisions where the FCC is not the same as the Illinois Act. Some of them are very small. For example, the annual fee, the annual fee for inspections is one number in Illinois and a slightly higher number in the FCC rule. And then there are others that are the opposite, where the Illinois provision is more appropriate or more beneficial or encouraging for municipalities than the FCC rule. Those will have to be reconciled when the FCC rule is issued. Some people are talking about it being issued in the next couple of weeks. I don't believe that will be the case, but it will be sometime soon. Coming back to your question, Another part of the answer is the same as the answer to your earlier question, which is that regardless of what the state act says and what the village itself has proposed, including, for example, that pole license agreement, there will always be negotiation on a fixture by fixture, location by location basis. The wireless services providers do not want to have to go to the state or to the FCC and challenge a position of the municipality if it isn't too troubling for them to just comply with what the municipality is doing. Everything that we've written for many municipalities, our clients, we have pushed the standards to the limit that we believe are consistent with the state law, but taking every ambiguity in the state law and putting it in favor of the municipality's control. So there will be adjustments. There'll be an amendment when the FCC rule comes. But for now, the village is as situated as it can be.
Super. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the only other thing I wanted to say is thank you to all of you guys for your role in where we've gotten already, the CEDC. Very, very helpful, great insights, and a bigger picture for all of us, and sorely needed, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, we have no matters before closed session. Item 10, motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second?
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned till October 8th, 7:30. Thank you.
I will not be.